Well, I mean, and this is going to sound probably really cliche, but I started sketching probably as early as I was able to hold a pencil. I've always been very drawn by just nature and, just even how light falls on things and animals and humans. And just, I don't know, just nature around me. I've always drawn since I was a little one. My mother actually had the most wonderful little craft cabinet, and we had this big light blue kitchen when I was little, and my mom had this little cabinet in the corner where I could open it up and create whenever I wanted to.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Mom Talks with Christa. I hope you're having a great week so far. I have another exciting episode for you today. I have Amy Kavelaris here today, who is a published children's author. And today we're talking all about encouraging your children's imagination through art. And let me just tell you, I was so excited for this interview because I myself am a lover of art. I grew up drawing nonstop. I love drawing faces. I love painting, but my favorite is charcoal pencil. And I still dabble in art from time to time. And it's amazing what it does for your mental health, your emotional health. And she just talks about how art as a child has so many benefits and helps your imagination. It helps you grow into an adult and helps you with so many things. And so this is just such a cool episode. And she talks all about her new book that was just released on February 8th. I know by the time this episode comes out, it'll have been out for a couple months, but it's called Good Morning Little One. She talks all about the meaning behind the book and how she came up with the idea for it. So it's just awesome to talk to her. And of course, stick around at the very end for our Mom Tales of the Week, where we read your answers on your side of motherhood. And it's just a fun new segment we have here on Mom Talks. So without further ado, here's my interview with Amy. So before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about you and who you are, what you do, and all that?
So first of all, I mean, my most important thing that I live for is giving glory to God. My family is, we have three girls. My husband Nick and I live in the Midwest. We have three little girls, Mila, Maya, and Maliana, and we love this small town in Wisconsin that we live in, and we spend a lot of our time renovating. We have a 120-year-old house that we renovate, and we have a little cottage that's old that we love house repair projects. So that's our family. My husband's a therapist, so he does a lot of important work in our community. Yeah, so regarding my own work, I'm an author, artist, and designer. I write and illustrate children's books for HarperCollins Christian and Tommy Nelson Publishing. My shop is currently amycavs.com. That's Kavs. So it used to be Bloom Print Studio. I used to own a children's art studio, and then we switched everything just so everyone would be able to find me a little easier. So that's amycavs.com. And really, in addition to publishing, I also contract in with companies. So I design for products that you can find in Anthropologie, Target, Walmart, Altered State, Barnes and Noble, and so many wonderful brands. So I love what I do. I can do it from home with my kids around me. So it's a dream for me. I just love every work day.
Yeah, that sounds like such an amazing job to be able to create through storytelling and use your artistic abilities to put it all together. That just sounds amazing.
It's great timing for me because our girls are growing. So I feel like I can really be available for them, and they actually inspire a lot of my work because a lot of it is in the children's realm. So it's kind of the perfect little situation for us right now. So we'll see how things grow as they get older.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So what inspired you to start sketching? Because I'm guessing you've kind of been doing it a long time. Like, were you a kid when
Mhm.
you started, or kind of how did you get into it?
Well, I mean, and this is going to sound probably really cliche, but I started sketching probably as early as I was able to hold a pencil. I've always been very drawn by just nature and, just even how light falls on things and animals and humans. And just, I don't know, just nature around me. I've always drawn since I was a little one. My mother actually had the most wonderful little craft cabinet, and we had this big light blue kitchen when I was little, and my mom had this little cabinet in the corner where I could open it up and create whenever I wanted to. I could go outside and I would write poetry and draw animals around me. So it's actually really remarkable that it's so much of what I do now through writing and painting is a lot. It was very inspired from what I did when I was a child. So I didn't major in art, and I took a long break from the arts in high school and college just because of sports and studying. I just didn't have much time for it. But as an adult, my husband really encouraged me to get back into it, and that's when I started sketching and painting again as an adult.
I love that. It's funny because when we do like different like meetups with like our Facebook group with our moms and stuff, and one of the things like we talk about is when you're having trouble finding like what makes you happy, to think about things you did as a kid that made you happy and kind of like gear it towards now. So if you are really into coloring, like find an adult coloring book, or, find time to sketch, or if you liked reading. It's interesting because I think a lot of times when we veer away, when we get older, that root was always there of what our like passion was.
Yeah, what do they say that, by the time you're 7, a lot of your personality has already formed for who you're going to be as an adult. And if you think about that, that's pretty profound when you're around a 7-year-old, how little that is. But those passions when you're little, even at the age of 7, are things that you're probably going to be interested in for the rest of your life. So it's important to ask that little girl or boy, like, oh, what was I interested in? Maybe I should try that again. So
yeah, I love that. And so tell us about some of the books that you have written and kind of like where the story comes from and how you're inspired to write those stories.
I'm so glad you asked. We just released Good Morning Little One, which is our latest release. It released on February 8th, so it hasn't been around for very long. It's really precious. It encourages little ones first thing in the morning. Or really, you could read it at the end of the day. These truths in the book are really great for any time of the day. But just it affirms them in the morning, that it calms a lot of anxieties that little ones have in the morning, maybe before going to school, or just a lot of overwhelm that can happen at the beginning of the day. It gives them affirmations from scripture, from the Bible, that God's carrying them through the day and that he's watching over them, and that really with him, when they put their trust in him, they can really accomplish so much, and that they don't need to have fear, that they can be affirmed, that they can have joy and hope. And so it's just a lot of beautiful affirmations for children to start their day. And then our last release was Good Night, My Darling Dear, these are a pair, actually. They're kind of a beautiful pair together. That was an affirmation book at the end of the day, when you've gone through your day and kind of processing through what you all went through. So it's a really nice pairing of a book. Our very first book, actually, Bloom With Me, celebrates the importance of, focusing on others and giving back with the gifts and talents that you've been given. We live in a very selfie-focused generation and culture where it's just, I was so drawn to the idea of really celebrating and encouraging my children at a young age to use their abilities to give back, rather than to sort of, point it towards themselves, to actually point it towards their community and use those abilities to give back. So those are the 3 books I've written so far. I hope that helps a little bit to answer your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's cool. I love the books with like different like lessons in them, where kids will be like inspired or feel like stronger because of reading a book.
Well, and it's funny because I wrote Bloom With Me, the third book I mentioned, when my daughter was 18 months. And I remember driving along and I looked in the car next to me, and there were a bunch of teenagers, God bless teenagers, but they were all on their phones taking selfies. Nobody was talking to each other. And I remember thinking, oh my word, what can we do to teach our kids at a little age? Like, it's not about the self. It's about, yes, you need to love yourself, but you also need to, it's so important to give back in your community and focus your wonderful, amazing, God-given talents and give them out back to others. So that was how that one got started. And then these other books are more just to affirm children. I think adults and children alike, we need affirmations to get through the day. And so I'm hoping that that good morning little one will especially speak to a parent's heart, just as it will to the children.
I love that. We always speak about affirmations here, and they're perfect at any age. And I think it's so powerful. I think a lot of times people underestimate how powerful affirmations are. So I love that. Start young.
Yes, absolutely. Start as young as you can.
Yes. So for parents listening, how can they encourage their child's imagination?
That's a good question. With our children, we get outside as much as we can. I think imagination is such a huge part of their development. So I would say, one, get off those. I think computer programs are great for a reason, but mostly get outside as often as you can. And what I would say is surround them with excellent content. So whether you're reading really good books, classic books with them, get outside, maybe create something that you find in nature. I believe a huge part of who we are was we were created for that connection and relationship. So spending a lot of one-on-one time with your kids, creating is such a huge part for their imagination and their creativity. We have a very brief window as parents to do the best we can to educate our babies, that giving them an experience, that's really valuable to their imagination, and it doesn't cost anything to go out and get out and make memories with them, tell stories together, make up stories. That's a huge part of imagination for kids. And go on adventures. Like I said, make collages of maybe leaves and flower petals, and then have them explain why they created what they did. Encouraging that healthy imagination is so awesome to do as a family with your little ones. So we try to, we don't get it right all the time, but that's a huge one for us, is just making sure you're having that one-on-one and then discussing it after, what their imagination is, what they're coming up with, and helps you get like really wonderful insight also into how their mind works and the way that they think.
I love that. And so like, when it comes to like having your kids like try art or expressing themselves through art, like what do you see as the benefits, or what can other parents kind of look for when their kids are starting to get into art or just trying art?
It's funny, I had mentioned our art studio earlier that we had. I have yet to find a child who doesn't love getting messy and getting full of color and paint. And I just think it's such an important way for them to express themselves. So it's a huge benefit. And I know parents, it's messy, and it's sometimes it's a lot of work, but I love going to like the dollar store and getting a bunch of those plastic table coverings, and then you can just let them go nuts, and just help them. You don't have to stress out as much about getting paint. Have an area in your home that allows them to create. Kids love that, and it's so good for them. And I've never seen a child that doesn't enjoy it. It helps them socially. It helps them emotionally in the expression of feelings. It helps them verbally to know better, how to translate what their art means. If they drew something and then, well, what does that mean to you? And then they're able to verbalize it, and translate whatever they put down on paper back into actually what it means to them. It helps them mentally. There's a huge part of your brain that is committed to creativity. So when you're using that muscle and you're strengthening that creative muscle, it really can help your overall mind and the way that you think, especially at a young age. Oftentimes we hear that listening to music, like classical music, before a test will really help a child. I really think creating art can help in that same way in school, even because it helps them develop those important cognitive skills and understanding. So get your kiddos into art if you can, if you have the energy to do it. It doesn't take too much energy, as long as you just make a clean space where they can create. It's really valuable in so many ways for your children.
Like I said, like I grew up loving art. Like that was like always my favorite. I took it like, all through high school. And then I think I just did more art on my own. But I was curious, like from your perspective, and if there's any like studies you've heard or seen, like for like kids that are really into art and keep art going, like are they showing like then different benefits for, expression or whatever it is, like as adults? Does that kind of translate a different way?
Oh, certainly. I think, I used to work for a brief period of time as an art therapist at a mental health facility. And it is profound, not just as a little one, but even when you're going through something really difficult, how art can really heal that. In my personal opinion, and from what I've seen, I don't know that I could point to anything specific scientifically, but I have heard a lot that creative arts are fundamental for countless aspects of life. Honestly, even this probably sounds silly, but even if you're a surgeon or you're in sales, maybe you're a teacher or you're a stay-at-home mom, creative thinking skills translate into any avocation. So, creativity comes very natural for some people more than others, but I think it's a very useful muscle for everyone that needs to be exercised to make it stronger. So if you're using that skill set you can really I'm just trying to think of a specific example. I mean, honestly, a surgeon, you are diving into trying to figure out how to perform whatever task you have in front of you. Using those creative thinking skills are essential. Same for sales, to figure out how to get in front of the person you want to talk to the most and how to be creative to catch their attention. It's all a part of the same realm. When you're creating art or a sculpture or a painting, you have to plan, set goals, figure out how you're going to creatively accomplish that task. Mm-hmm. And so all of that, I think, is very connected. So children doing art at a very young age, or even using art through healing, it all kind of ties together. Using that creativity is so important. I remember specifically too, as a child, reading books like the Boxcar Children. Are you familiar with?
I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, and these children were given an insurmountable odds. They lived on their own and they had to figure out how to survive, and all the creative ways that they came up with to survive. It was so fascinating as a child because children love creativity. And so even having them read books about creative thinking, it certainly helps them in so many aspects of their life, regardless of what job they choose when they get older, certainly.
Yeah. And I think too, like when, like adult coloring books, like I've even seen like dot to dots for adult. I think when stuff like that started coming out, adults were realizing like, it's okay for me to like have that side and do art. And because I think a lot of times as we get older, we tell ourselves, oh, that's kid stuff, or I don't have time for that. But it's really so good, I think, for mental health, emotional health. I know like it's like the one thing I can like really like zone in on when I do art. I'm sure you can relate to that. So it's such a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. We have seen such a resurgence in adult coloring books. That's such a good point. People love that at every age. Like being able to make something with our hands is really profound. And then we're so proud of it when we're done. No matter if you do it for a living or if you just do it for fun, there is something really wonderful and freeing in being able to create something, even if it's just to pass the time.
And so we talk a lot about kids, finding imagination, using their imagination. So why is it so important for kids to tap into this?
Well, I think I mentioned a little earlier, so much of the child's growth and development starts with imagination, doesn't it? I mean, imagination really aids in the development of their social skills, how they can emotionally process things, physically. If they're able to imagine certain things, it's good for their physical wellness. Lingually, if they're able to process what they're feeling, and their problem solving skills. So I think pretending also helps a child's self-esteem. It gives them a confidence to imagine, how they want to execute their day, who they want to aspire to be. So there's so many things the imagination can help a child do that I think it's really critical that parents, of course, within healthy boundaries, but I think within a certain realm, I think parents encouraging imagination and even interacting with them with imaginative play too is really helpful for kids because it's a great means of expression for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important. They say like imagination just helps with so many aspects of kids' lives. So I think that's amazing. So tell us about your new book, Good Morning, Little One. And just, I know you're kind of talking about it before, but just tell us a little bit more about like where people can find it, where it's available and all that good stuff so they can get their hands on it.
I'm happy to give you a little backstory if you want to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and this is kind of my favorite part. So it's actually ironic because our last book launched, Goodnight, My Darling Dear, launched during 2020, the beginning in spring. So like right when everything was starting to shut down, and it was so disappointing, and everything about it was disappointing, right? That time period. But at the same time, it was interesting how a new story was starting to be written, even through that hard time. This book started to be written. So it just goes to show that there's always a silver lining to everything. I think there's so many silver linings we found through the terrible things that have gone on these past 2 years. There's some beautiful things happening too. So my daughter, my 3-year-old at the time, it didn't matter, what she was doing. She'd be playing with her dolls. She'd be playing with her sisters. She'd be crawling into bed. And just randomly throughout the day, she kept asking, Mom, is God carrying us? And she kept asking and asking. And it was so tender and sweet for this little 3-year-old. I mean, we were keeping life as normal as we could in our home, but I think she could tell that things were different. Her sister was homeschooling. My husband was working from home for the first time. And I just thought, gosh, this is such a neat opportunity to tell her, yes, he is carrying us. There's so many places in the Bible where it talks about how God is carrying us through the day. And so I was able to share that with her. And I thought, my gosh, if a 3-year-old is asking this question, then perhaps there's a lot of other 3-year-olds or little ones around the world that are maybe asking the same question, or what is this all about? And I'm afraid, or I want some affirmations. And so the wonderful thing about Good Morning Little One is we have hidden scripture on each page. So not only do a lot, my girls and I look through whenever we're going on hikes and we're looking through nature, we're always trying to find God's promises in nature. So if we find a feather, for example, we think of Psalm 91, where God talks about how he's going to protect you under the shadow of his wings, different things like that he promises us, and it gives us hope and it gives us peace and comfort. So we hid scripture on each page so little ones can find those scriptures. And then the actual original verses are on the back and front flaps of the book. So you can go back with your kids. You can talk about what they actually mean, affirm them that God's with them during the day. And then when you're out in nature, maybe you can find some of those promises. And so, maybe you're out at recess time, your little ones, and they're having a tough day. Maybe they see something that reminds them of the book and they're feeling comforted by it. So that was really the biggest reason that we decided to go after this book. And then we thought, well, let's pair it with the Good Night book and make it a good morning book so they can start their day off in a really wonderful way, just as the Good Night book sends them to dreamland in a really sweet way too.
Oh, I love that. So it turns into kind of like a inspirational, fun, so then they can be excited to go out into nature and find all the signs that you're kind of talking about. That's really cool.
Yeah, we hope that parents enjoy it just as much as little ones do. And Good Morning Little One has some really sweet little critters on the pages. So if nothing else, we hope that the little ones really engage with the smiling faces on the bunnies and the lambs and the puppies. We try to pick animals that most kids really love and engage with, that they're familiar with. So yeah, we so far we've had a really beautiful response. So we're just hoping that families really enjoy it.
That's awesome. And so where can everyone find your books?
So Good Morning Little One is available on Amazon. You can also find it at Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble. It will soon be in Altered State. We actually, Good Night, My Darling Dear, our previous book is right now in Altered State. You can also, in a few months, we'll be able to get this new book there as well. And then really in most independent bookstores, you should be able to find it if you like to shop small. So yeah, and you can also find it on my website, amykavs.com. If you want to email us, we can send like a signed copy, whatever you like. So you can pretty much find it anywhere. So if you're looking to grab it for a baby shower or, maybe the little one in your life, they're great for Easter baskets because of the lambs and bunnies on the cover. So anywhere where books are sold, pretty much you should be able to find it at this point.
And so I always like to end these interviews with fun thinking question, I call them. And so if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
There are a million things I could say for this one, right? But I think the biggest one, and this is one I tell my girls, but I also actually say it back to myself, is don't wish the day away. And I say that because I fully understand as a parent that days can be really hard and they can be long when you're a mom and you're just trying to get through the day. If you're a working mom, if you work from home, if you're fully invested in, being a stay-at-home mom, I truly believe parenthood is one of the greatest gifts we've been given on earth. And we have such a small window with little children, don't we? I mean, my goodness, I can't believe we already have an almost 8-year-old, and I feel like I just brought her home from the hospital. So I think so often our world around us kind of is trying to, tell us that we should have more and should always want more in our careers. And while that's okay within reason, I think it's so important to look at the blessing that's right in front of us and to not wish, granted, we have to put our food on the table at the end of the night. So work is important. We might want to really build our businesses and make them really amazing. But I think it's so important to look at that job that we have in front of us, these sweet children and make sure that we don't wish away hope that, a year from now, we're just going to be so much farther along in our careers, to just really focus on those little precious babies that we have in front of us. I mean, one day your house will be clean again, but your babies will likely be adults and grown and gone by that point. So just try to cherish the moment that you're living in. I know it's so hard, but it's good to be reminded of how many blessings we have just right in front of us, right as they're happening, even though they're hard, to just try not to wish away the day in front of you.
Yes, I love that. That's a good one. And of course, you've kind of mentioned your website and stuff, but for anyone that needs to hear it again, where can everyone follow you, find you, socials, website, all that?
Sure. Okay. So I'm mostly on my website, and Instagram is really our biggest platform that we're on right now. So again, it's Amy Kavs, Amy, AMYKAVS.com. You can find our books there, my artwork there. I do custom work. I open up commissions 2 times a year. And then Amy Kavs is who I am on Instagram as well. So the fun thing about, if you want to follow me there, it'll give you insight into where we're traveling for book signings. We're going to be going all around the country signing, but we'll also be doing some virtual events as well. And then some different television, we'll be doing different television appearances. So if you're interested at all in my artwork or in these sweet little children's books, hopefully we'll be able to meet up with you somewhere. And you can, again, you can find Good Morning Little One on my website, or really where books are sold. So, and then always, I try to answer most comments, just because I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for the wonderful people in our community that support my artwork and my books. So I would love to connect with you. Send me a message, and we just so appreciate whenever anyone engages with my work. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great talking to you. And I think this is such an important topic for parents to hear, to encourage imagination in their kids and a little in themselves too, have that artistic side. So this was awesome. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Christa. This was so fun, and good luck to you and all that you do. I so appreciate everything you do in inspiring young moms and children. It's really invaluable work that you're doing.
All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the Week, and we got a good one for you today. I actually saw this in an article recently, and I was like, you know what? We got to ask our moms this. It's share your kids' supernatural experiences. And I know everyone has different views on this, but these were fun to read. These are really, really fun to read. So if it's not your cup of tea, I totally understand. You don't have to hang around for it. But for those that do enjoy this stuff, here we go. Okay, this is from Judith. Once when my daughter was 4, she was waiting for me at the end of the hallway. When I reached to her, I said, "Come on, kiddo, let's go." And she said, "Mom, I'm not waiting for you. I'm waiting for them." And pointed at an empty hallway and smiled. Okay, I need follow up to this. Did you see anything? Did she describe them? Oh my gosh, I'm so confused by that one. This is from Chris. My aunt died when my niece was a month old. When she was 3 or 4, she asked to go outside and swing, so I took her. Her other swing was moving, but I thought it was the wind. My niece started talking to it. I asked who she was talking to. She said, Annie Mae Adams, my aunt. Okay, what? I don't even know what to say to some of these. I think I'm just going to be jaw dropped and have to pick it back up. That's insane. Okay, this is from Jen. I woke up in the dead of the night in total darkness. Thought someone had called for me, but it was all quiet. Didn't notice that my 3-year-old had crept in and was standing directly beside my bed until he whispered in my ear, "I used to have a train set when I was a grandpa." I don't know if I would laugh or cry or what. Have your kids ever scared you in the middle of the night? That would terrify me. This is from Mary. My daughter was about 5 when she says, "You're the best mommy I ever had." I said, "I'm the only mommy you've ever had." She looks at me and says, "No, you're the 3rd, but I like you best." Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Is there follow-up to this? Do you ask her more questions? I'm so curious. Okay, this is from Allison. When my son was 3, he started singing a Polish nursery rhyme that my husband's grandmother used to sing to babies in the family. She passed away before my son was born. We don't speak or sing Polish. That is quite amazing. I mean, how do you even explain that? Does her ghost come in the room and sing to him? I mean, has he heard it somewhere? I need more details. I need to know what's going on. Okay, let's read a couple more. Here's another one that's kind of similar to that. This is from Jazz. When my twins were born, one of them took longer to talk. When she did start talking, it was in fluent Spanish, which we don't speak at home, nor does anyone that comes in contact with her at the time. That is impressive, for one. And I'd be like, how does she know what she's saying right now? That's amazing. Do you have Spanish influence in your family? I would be so curious. Okay, this one is Michelle Young. When my daughter was 2, I found her under the table with one of my husband's old children's books, turning pages as if she were being read to. I asked her what she was doing. She said, reading with Grandma. My husband's mother died 2 years before she was born, and it was her book. Oh, that's kind of sweet. I mean, again, it depends on your beliefs on this or not, but whether or not, she was actually reading to Grandma, she might have known it was Grandma's book and wanted to enjoy that moment with her reading her book. So that was good. I think I'm going to find one more. I know these are really good. Let's read this one because it's cute. Okay, this is from Becca. Someone very close to me passed away, and a few weeks ago, my almost 4-year-old daughter woke me up around 2 a.m. to tell me Darian was in her room laughing with her, and she couldn't sleep because he was too funny. Comforting, but... And then she did the emoji where you're like... I mean, at least he was making her laugh, and it wasn't like she came in your room crying, so... Hey, if he's making her laugh and she couldn't sleep because of that, I guess that's all good. A little creepy. Thank you for sharing these. I loved reading these. Like I said, we came across this on like a little thread, and I was like, I want to see what stories you guys have. So if you guys have more to share it in our Facebook group, on Instagram. Love reading these, and I love just having you guys kind of like have a little community around these questions. All right, guys, thank you so much for sharing, and I will see you next week. Hey guys, if you found this or any episode of Mom Talks with Christa helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. We release new videos every single Wednesday, and our new podcast is out every single Thursday. So lots of different ways you can catch us. And of course, if you're not following us on our socials, go ahead and follow us there. We've got tons of new content for you every single day. And finally, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.